Hello, everybody. Welcome to 100 Degrees. My name is Patrick Ross, and I am here today in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. This is an invasion. I am the most belovedest person in all of British Columbia, have been pretty much like all this last week. I actually had intended to try to film some podcasts segments in in Vancouver, but the weather was just absolutely god awful, like you wouldn't believe. I mean, if you're from Vancouver, then I guess you probably would believe. It's the first time in my life that I've ever actually been someplace where monsoon remnants shows up in the shows up in the weather forecast. So did have one really beautiful day, but I was just way too busy to stop and do anything. And the next few days, just the weather was no good. But now I'm here in Victoria today. We've had a little bit of rain, but other than that, as you can see, the weather has been absolutely beautiful. I'm here in Beacon Hill Park, and I just had to stop and record something here because I just happened to find this really cool little stone sofa, and I was just like, sofa, and as I've just been on my feet nonstop for the last few days. So I'm actually here right now, and I'm right across from the famed, see if I can again, cool, so maybe you can see it there. Yeah, it looks like you can. So I'm literally right across the way from the famous Moss Lady. Let's see if I can get a better from the famous Moss Lady here in Beacon Hill Park. It's not quite like park in Vancouver, but man, there's some really beautiful things to see here. So anyway, now that I've wasted 2.5 minutes telling you all about that, I suppose that I should get on with the topic that I was sitting down to record on. And of course, because we're kicking off the podcast, that's going to be the Edmonton Oilers. And man, I feel like I'm not missing very much. I'm out here in BC. Let's just say that the availability of Oilers broadcasts out here is not sublime. So I haven't really gotten to see a game since I came out here. And just looking at what's been going on, I kind of feel like I haven't really been missing much. I think that's an ugly slew of games. 3 consecutive losses. And then last night they did beat Ottawa. So that's great. But over the last few years, I kind of feel like even as Ottawa gets better, we still expect the Oilers to beat the Senators. But the streak is broken, so that's nice. But I gotta say that I think the worst thing about that streak is the detail that it was entirely self-inflicted, in my opinion. Admittedly, the first game of the season did not turn out the way that we would have expected from this team over the last few years. That shootout loss to Calgary, not the way that you want to start. But through the first 3 games of this season, we picked up 5 of an available 6 points. It's a pretty good way to start the season. And then after that, we had the streak. And we're not talking about like an Undertaker WrestleMania streak. We're talking about one of the bad ones. And unfortunately, yeah, I do think that streak was largely self-inflicted. Chris Knobloch is a pretty young coach, and he's managed to accomplish a lot with this team since he's arrived here. I mean, yep, he's taken us to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. You definitely can't complain about that. But I do kind of feel that in a league like in the NHL, where you have to place such a premium on players performing, there's a lot of things that you can do with your lineup, and there's a lot of things that you can't do. And I think that one of the things that you can't do is you can't take a player who is performing out of the lineup just because you have another guy that you want to bring in. So, pretty early in the season here, they waited until, I believe it was right before the Vancouver game, the Oilers signed Jack Roslovic, formerly of the Carolina Hurricanes, formerly of a few other teams. He's one of these guys who has kind of gotten around the league a little bit, and every so many years he's managed to put together a 20-goal season. So not necessarily a terrible player to bring in if you're going to bring in a player. A 20-goal player. You would think that if he's a 20-goal player in Carolina, if you were to come out here and place him with McDavid or Draisaitl, then maybe he can do at least 20, but maybe he can do more like 25, 30. Okay. It's probably worthwhile to bring that player in if you can bring him in reasonably inexpensively, as they did with Roslovic. But now you have to put him into the lineup. And what do they decide to do? But they take out Noah Philp, formerly of the University of Alberta Golden Bears, a guy who has been very close to this to being on the ice with this organization full-time, particularly over the past season. I believe that he did get a game or two last year, but didn't get a full-time spot. But this year, Derek Ryan moves on. Noah Philp moves in. I think it's always great if you can add a Golden Bear to your lineup. You can't go wrong. Especially given the kind of success that this team has had in the past, with former Golden Bears. Derek Ryan was a big part of this Oilers playoff success over the past few seasons. Previous to that, I think that he's one of the forgotten Oilers greats, but Mr. Dr. Randy Gregg. I was about called him Mr. That's wrong. It's Dr. Dr. Randy Gregg. And he was with the Oilers for all 5 Stanley Cups. He was an NHL All-Star. And he was previously a University of Alberta Golden Bear. Another guy that I think that a lot of people forget about with some frequency, maybe because he was a coach, Billy Morse. He was famously kind of the other side of what they were, of what you would almost call like the Golden Bears duality. And so when the legendary Claire Drake, God rest his soul, was still the coach for the Golden Bears, it was said that it was a team full of players that if you were to go out and you were to just put a brick wall out on the ice and ask them how they're going to get on the other side of that wall, that they're a team that would be able to go through that wall if they wanted to, but more likely they were going to think their way around it. And then Billy Morse, he was kind of the other side of that. He took over that team when Claire Drake retired, and he became the head coach. And people said about him, it's like, that's a team that would be able to think their way around that wall, but they probably just go through it. So there's been a long length of success between those two organizations. And Noah Philp gets to come in now, and he gets to continue that tradition. Which almost kind of sounds like sentimentality. It is sentimentality. And that's not the basis on which you want to make your roster decisions on an NHL, a National Hockey League club. Yes, I understand that. But here's the other thing. So Noah Philp had just scored in that previous game. And you should probably, unless something else happened that has given you tremendous cause, especially when it comes to those bottom 6 players, you don't want to take a guy out of the lineup right after he's scored because, well, for one thing, you're going to disrupt the momentum that he has. And then the other side of it is that it sends entirely the wrong message to the rest of your players. And the message that it sends is that, it doesn't really matter what you do. The minute that the coach has a whim, you're coming out of the lineup. Or the second that we think that we have somebody just a little bit better than you, you're going to be the guy that comes out of the lineup, regardless of what you've done for us. And so on a team that I would think by now we should all agree has kind of become famous for the struggles, particularly, in the bottom two lines on the team, that bottom six. It has been a little bit of a struggle to get guys there to produce. Because a lot of guys have shown up and they look around the room and they're like, oh, hey, there's Connor McDavid. Oh, hey, there's Leon Draisaitl. There's Zach Hyman. There's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They're going to go out and they're going to win this game for us, and we just need to ride along. It doesn't really matter what we do. And so that kind of gave us players, like Brandon Perlini. Oh, God. I don't want to be too unkind, but, his whole, we need to be more grateful to win thing, even all this time later, I still, if you were to show me footage of that on screen, I would still want to reach through that TV screen and slap that guy. So not the kind of guy that you want around, because he was the kind of guy who showed up. It's like, hey, those other guys are going to go win the game for us, and we should just be grateful that they won the game for us. No, not the kind of player that you want here. Instead, you want a player like Noah Philp, who's going to go out and play his ass off for every minute on the ice that you give him. And he's going to produce everything that he can. He's going to give you everything that he has to give. Because he's here to earn a roster spot. And he's in a position on the team where, yes, he does have to earn his ice time. Well, this season, Noah Philp has been earning his ice time. Here's a guy who might not necessarily earn his ice time. Jack Roslovic. And in fact, as I looked at the statistics last night, unless I missed something in there, unless I didn't look closely enough, it looks to me like through, I believe, 4 games, Jack Roslovic has 0 points. This is a guy who has produced nothing for this team so far, and definitely nothing along the lines of what people had to have been thinking that they could expect when he got signed. I think that when you look at a player like Jack Roslovic, if you're actually looking at him and thinking that you can expect anything from him, I think that's a mistake. Because I think that the story of Jack Roslovic's career, at least as it appears to me as I look at his statistical output throughout his career, is that the one thing that he's consistent about is that he's not consistent. Here or there, he'll produce a 20-goal season. Last year he did in Carolina. However, when you look at his stats, like, you're going to see those big gaps there where it's like, okay, one year he did 15 goals. That's respectable. That's respectable. But then maybe the next year he does like 7 goals. And there's a few years in there where he went consecutively like single digits. So that is not the kind of player that I think that anybody should be expecting a whole lot from. I don't think that expect is the right word. I think that we still kind of hope to see it. But certainly we haven't seen it yet. And so it's almost a hindsight calculation, and I do realize that, in the sense that we're looking at what he's already done and just saying to ourselves, yeah, okay, like maybe we should have expected this. But at the same time, the decision to make that particular roster move, Noah Philp in, Noah Philp out, Jack Roslovic in, was based around this idea that we could expect anything from this guy. And look at his history. It's the basis for expectation It just is not there. Now, who knows? In a couple of days' time, I'm going to publish this video. And maybe by then, he's going to just have turned it on and he's going to be lighting up and burning up this league. Yeah, I wouldn't obviously, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Like, that would be fantastic. But he hasn't done it yet. And so, you know, the absolute last thing that this team ever should have done was done something that was going to disrupt its momentum, you know, for the sake of a player that just, you know, doesn't seem to generate it on a season by season basis, on a season